I'm Pete Navis. I'm in Osaka, Japan.
I am Kitten Mapiri Navis. I'm in Los Angeles, California. And for our first installment of Naked Critics, we are going to talk about Mad Max Fury Road.
What a lovely day!
So, Pete, you got to see this more recently than I did because the movie did not get released in Japan until about 3 weeks after it was released in the United States. So, why don't you go first? First impressions.
So I was really anticipating this coming out. The commercials looked so good. I did not like this movie. Really much at all in any aspect.
But I think by saying that you did not like it, the entire internet is now in an uproar.
Well, I assume they'll have your opinion to counteract that.
I thoroughly enjoyed the movie. However, I cannot go so far as to say it is a good movie. And I'm hoping that perhaps this is just a setup to reintroduce us to the world and the characters and that it's going to get better.
See, here's my problem. So, original movie happens, then Mad Max comes out.
Yes.
In the first 10 minutes of Mad Max, it has well established the world that these people live in, and the things that they care about, and the sort of craziness that has infected everyone in society. This new movie, in the first 10 minutes, you're like, wait, what is going on? Is this a Beyond Thunderdome remake? I'm so confused. Is this supposed to be the same guy that Mel Gibson played? He's got this kid who he's haunted by, but we don't recognize her. We don't know her story. It's not his kid from Road Warrior, because that's like a baby.
I think we're going to get a sequel that tells us backstory.
And there's my fundamental problem with this movie. Is that we don't know enough about anyone in it to care about anyone in it.
I get later that we're supposed to figure that the little girl that Max is haunted by is Furiosa.
That doesn't make any sense at all.
Yeah,
No, I don't buy that.
I
I don't think it's her.
don't know.
See any reason why it would be. He's clearly new to this particular situation.
It's sort of new to the situation, but not really. And I think that's why we're supposed to get the whole point later of, like, with the other bride, of, like, I saw her going with the wheels.
Explain.
The little girl who he's haunted by.
Right.
And the whole, like, you were supposed to save us and all that. You get the one flash of her, like, being hit by the vehicle. But you don't see her go into the wheels.
Did you see it?
I think you're reading a lot into one line.
Maybe. And I think there's supposed to be a reason why he doesn't tell her his name until the very end when she's delirious on the brink of death.
In this world, you can't have connections.
Yeah.
Because if you hold on to hope, you'll go insane.
That too. In that whole first sequence, I seriously thought he was supposed to be hallucinating that the scorpion was talking to him, but that's a whole other weird thing. The beginning of it, like, we did okay at, like, establishing environment, but then, like, he gets grabbed by the war party. You don't really, like, you sort of get the impression that, like, he's the only one, and why are they going to all this effort to hunt him down when they've got all of those other people down there that they're presumably somewhat feeding and giving bits of water to and all that? I mean, why would you waste resources?
So they get to that tattoo scene.
Right.
I immediately assumed this is a guy that they have held as a prisoner for a long, long time, who has attempted to escape over and over and over. And they keep him because he is a universal donor. But then the problem is, every experience he has after that is a new experience for him.
Right, and well, really, if they're having to go to all this effort to hunt him down, of all the times that they're making their runs to the gas yard and the bullet farm and all of that with the different nomad tribes that are attacking them, why aren't they just going and fucking those people up?
Well, again, I think it's that, we're sort of rebuilding society, so you're allowed to prey on strangers, but not your own people. Right.
Well, why are you going to all this effort to kill all those people if you need to take people back to cure your obviously diseased war boys?
Well, the boys are disposable.
True.
The only resources that matter in this world now are water, fuel, and bullets.
Right.
Probably in that order. Why don't any of these other cars have somebody strapped to the front as, blood donor to keep them in their, war fury, this rig clearly existed before that moment.
Right.
They wouldn't have had time to create it, but it's not something that everyone's doing, but there's so many things in this movie that, though on the surface they sort of look cool, they make no sense whatsoever.
And Doof is one of them. He was a spectacle, and I won't lie, every time he was on the screen, I could not stop giggling. And so now he goes out in his onesie, wearing his dead mother's face and playing his huge flaming guitar, which was actually a fully functioning, playable flaming guitar.
Yeah, right. These people in this world would not make a flamethrower guitar.
But apparently they do, because in a world where fuel is so precious, you need a huge flaming guitar that's just gonna suck up this fuel. I love the fact that Immortan Joe is so amazingly selfish and wasteful that simply because he wants this mammoth vehicle with, this, blazing metal guitarist, literally,
right,
to tear its way through the desert on whatever war parties, because it's his largest war vehicle.
Yeah, no, I totally buy the drums. That's completely credible.
I love the flaming guitar, too, because it is so wasteful and impractical, and it is nothing but spectacle.
Sure. And I get that, it's an illustration of how valuable water is in this world. That, he can buy anything he wants. But I don't buy that it works. How much maintenance and setup and all that goes into, the average, playing one night at your local bar. All of your instruments and speakers, all of the technology that has to hook together and function correctly, and something blew a fuse and now none of it works. So you've got this post-apocalyptic sound truck driving through the desert with the speaker wall and this bungee suspended guy, and I don't buy that it all functions.
And that's one of those things that I appreciate about the making of the movie. This was not a digitized effect. This was one of their many practical effects.
Sure, cool, that's nice.
But
I buy that people in 2015 can make a flamethrower guitar.
Sure, but actually taking it out into the desert and having it take a beating and keep going.
Driving through these dust storms. Right.
As they're driving through the dust storm and people are, being ripped out into the atmosphere and all of that, but Max is just going to hold on to the back and hide. Sorry.
Right. Yeah, like I cringed when they drove into that because I was like, oh, he's going to be torn apart by this thing. No.
Nah, he's cool.
No.
It's all good. Yeah, there was a remarkable lack of blood in this movie.
If you're not dead, you're fine.
Right. Right.
Here's the thing that pushed it beyond what I could cope with. So they get to the salt flats, right?
Yes.
And they're like, you know what? If we strip everything down, if we pack everything on the motorbikes, we'll be able to travel for 160 days. They say 160 days. Let's say we mosey along at 10 miles an hour for 8 hours a day. Because, we're traveling at a nice, low fuel-efficient speed. We're pretty heavily weighed down. So we're going 80 miles a day. 160 days. We've now gone something like 12,000 miles. Where are these salt flats? What planet are these people on? Even if the oceans have dried up, why would they not be traveling in any other direction than this? We could be like, you know what, we could turn slightly to the right and go 160 days that way. What is going on in this world?
And we aren't getting any sort of how long it's taken society to fall.
And who killed the world?
And why? I mean, ultimately, I guess the whys don't matter a ton because that's not the story they're trying to tell. And so where are the women going now? What are they heading towards? It couldn't have been all that long because Furiosa remembers being there.
If she was a child when she was kidnapped from there,
Right.
then Max was also a child at that time.
Right, because they are...
That was already very much post-apocalyptic. Like this little society at the water pump place had already been set up, was already functioning in its current form for some extended period of time. How old is Boss Guy? I mean, also, I don't know any characters' names. The movie... Nobody has names in this movie. But if I have to go to a website to read up on the background of, major characters who show up over and over again...
With the names, I can take it or leave it, because they aren't... Their names aren't relevant, because it's a story about the society as a whole.
But, getting back to, the timeline things we were talking about. In the previous Mad Max movies, we sort of saw the disintegration of society. And for me, the key to those movies was that Max was somebody who had lived in a flourishing society, and was looking for that again. Now, apparently, we're so far post-apocalypse that nobody remembers the world as it was. And it's just really strange that they felt compelled to keep their main character named Max. They cast somebody who sort of looks like Mel Gibson.
Yes. After the first few minutes of the movie, I realized I just had to let go of the previous three.
Yeah. Except that they're depending on your knowledge of the previous three movies. They want you to relate to this loner hero with his, post-apocalyptic, nitrous-fueled sports car who has all these, regrets about not saving children.
I didn't feel like I was supposed to relate to Max at all. I felt like I was supposed to relate to Furiosa.
Right. Well, she's much more human. But I think Max is supposed to be the one who... he's the one who changes. And the kid. I don't know the kid's name either. But, they're both the ones who, he as, like, the ultimate loner, and the kid as, like, the ultimate
Fair.
follower. Like, they both have to find their way back to humanity.
I guess I saw Max as more the more catalyst than character. I sort of see it that, like, our war boy is the one character who changed.
Right. Yeah, I mean, the war boy was far more interesting, but also for that reason far less plausible to me. But he has lived his entire life under this sort of, like, godlike rule of his own father.
It's over. You can't defy.
Because he fails to accomplish his mission in a glorious blaze of self-destruction,
His hand will be lifted up.
suddenly now he questions the entire system and, like, flat out turns against his father.
I saw it, which was like, well, he failed his mission, so he had to keep going and keep trying, and then he fell in love. In the environment in which he was raised, I don't even know if the practicalities of love or the acknowledgement of even just kindness would fit into it.
Yeah, I really doubt these war boys would be permitted any relationships whatsoever, except with each other in a very, like, let's all dance around the fire and masturbate as a group before we go out and kill people. You know, like, I feel like that's how they would get all pumped up, and because they're all, you know, they travel the wastelands and get killed by radiation over time.
Right.
So, like, I can buy all the changes that happen to his character, but not as happening over the course of, like, 2 days. So the movie essentially opens with, I mean, you get past the first couple little filler scenes, and then you have, like, a 45-minute long chase scene.
Yes.
Structurally, in this movie, that's what makes it not work for me. We don't know the stakes for anybody, so we don't know why we should care about this. Mad Max, back in the mid-'80s or whatever, had a very similar chase scene, but it was the end of the movie. And then we have our chase scene, and then we can care about everybody involved in it.
And even with this, like, so you get through, you know, these huge chase scenes, and suddenly it's like, okay, so Furiosa has taken off with the wives.
Right, gradually over time, they're like, why are we wasting so much stuff on this?
Right.
Because Joe signaled them
Right.
via heliograph.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't understand. Like, there was no explanation whatsoever of why they would even bother to get involved.
Because they need water. Because, yeah, you know, you can get by without bullets, you can get by without gas. No, it's a movie that's about explosions and jumping from one vehicle to another.
Right. And in that, they did some amazing things, and they did it with practical effects, and that makes me happy.
I'm glad to know that we're pretty well on the same page about this, because you saw this movie a month before I did, and you said, it was so amazing, it was so much fun, and I was like...
It was fun, but fun does not equal good. I just wanted to see if, like, you would have the same absolute cringe moment that I did when the naked woman goes sliding down the very thick rope.
Oh yes.
Come on!
I was like, no! Yeah.
No, there's certain parts of your body that you do not ever want rope burned. In a movie that's, you know, in a lot of ways is sort of a very feminist-driven movie. Because it's a movie that very blatantly says, men destroyed the world, and now women are going to come back and fix it. Because they have the physical prowess, they have the intelligence, and they have the plans.
Seeds.
They did.
And a very clunky, like, beat you over the head, kind of.
But then suddenly you have this woman who, there's no practical reason why she should have been naked whatsoever.
They're just living up there on the fringes of nothing, laying traps for passersby? Who drives through their land? Nobody.
Why do you have to have her be naked for this? That is the one thing that I have to say was just ridiculous and offensive.
For me, that was the hose down all the wives scene.
That one was like that. Admittedly, that was our sort of let's have a wet T-shirt contest in the middle of the desert.
That's what I expected this was going to be. Was like, you know, the 2 or 3 more gutsy and capable of them would strap on some, like, you know, some dusty burlap stuff so they could take a spot on the back of the truck with a gun.
Right.
Yeah. Well, and I'm not sure how all these cars with these, like, huge gaping carburetor intakes were able to drive through that sandstorm at all.
Because, you know, that's going to clog up the system.
At least they did have the little scene of everybody cleaning their engines off after the fact. But, so many things. So he rips out the transfusion cord, right? And immediately buckles it into a little thing on his shoulder so you can see it for the whole rest of the movie. Yes. So you know it will be used again.
Having that needle wedged into you, if it gets moved around at all, that hurts. That's fine. And it never comes out?
Yeah. Well, and like, why did he need to, like, get the chain removed before he could pull the needle out? I don't. And how was he so readily able to just, like, drop that into a vein at the end of the movie?
I figured it was just his smack habit. So I think in summation, we can say that Mad Max Fury Road, fun action romp, some beautiful eye candy to be had, desperately short on plot, character development, or anything of substance.
Yes. This is a spectacle movie.
It is.
There were, in fact, many moments when I was watching it, and I was like, this is because it's in 3D.
Yes.
A lot of, like, things flying at the screen, or things poking at the screen.
When another one comes out, I'll see it.
I will not pay to see it. I would not recommend paying to see this movie.
You know, special discounted $6 Tuesdays?
But the movie that we've both seen that I think is the movie that I would recommend to people who want to see this, but we have now discouraged, watch Bounty Killers.
Yes.
Which has its own flaws, but it is the sort of spiritual successor to the original Mad Max movies.
Bounty Killers can satisfy many of the things in, you know, that Mad Max satisfied for people. It's got some wonderful feminist moments. It has some glorious violence. It's got a wonderful desolate wasteland in a world that's been destroyed by corporate corruption and things like that.
And it's funny.
It's funny.
People on Fury Road all take themselves so seriously all the time.
I laughed a lot while watching Fury Road, but I feel like that may have been laughing at it and not with it.
So out of 5 screaming chrome-painted war boys, how many screaming chrome-painted war boys do you give this movie?
1.5 screaming chrome-painted war boys.
Okay, that is pretty harsh. I was going to give it a 2. Yeah, so between us, the Naked Critics average a 1.75 screaming chrome-painted war boy for Mad Max Fury Road.
Thanks everybody for watching the first installment of Naked Critics, and stay tuned for whatever comes next.
Have a nice day.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!